In 2016, California wife and mother Sherry Papini disappeared for 22 days. When she was found, she told authorities a detailed account of being kidnapped and tortured. Years later, in a stunning twist, Papini pled guilty to making false statements about what happened to her, setting off a media firestorm. Now, for the first time, Sherry Papini is telling her side of the story and revealing shocking new information. Sherry Papini, Caught in a Lie, an ID documentary event, Monday, May 26th at 9 on ID. Set your DVR. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 184 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. How about you?
Man, I'm doing good, man, too.
All right.
So we got a lot of mans, we got a lot of goods.
One of these days I'll switch it up, but I just can't because that's what I do.
It is what you do. And we got to keep on doing what we do, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll get little voice clips from different listeners.
Yeah.
And they're do our intro just like spot on. Like,
well, sure.
Yeah. They're do
They've
both
heard
our
it.
voices. Yeah.
They've heard it how many times?
Yeah.
And they can recreate it.
Yeah.
I don't know. My wife is always watching Facebook clips or I don't know, Instagram clips or whatever it is.
Right.
And there was these two women, and I know one of them was famous. She was on like Full House or something.
Yeah.
She's an actress.
Okay.
She had her daughter with her, and they were recreating scenes from either like Friends or a movie or a show. They were using the real
voice
audio,
doing a TikTok to it.
and they were just lip syncing, but they were so dead on.
Yeah.
It was scary.
Yeah.
And they were doing the gestures. It was really funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a kick out of it. And my wife will say, "Oh, you got to watch this." And usually it's something I really don't care to see unless it's puppies. You got puppies, I'm in.
You're into puppies. I
love the dogs. I'll watch them. So we're both doing good.
Yeah.
You got your haircut.
I did.
Which is a feat in and of itself. I
was.
went to go and it was a 3-hour wait. So I'm still going a little Grizzly Adams over here.
I had that guy back in the alley do it. So,
Yeah, I'm sure that was safe.
Yeah.
You got a tattoo. One person did the tattoo. One person did the haircut.
At the same time.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Multitasking.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Gibbs, we continue to have an amazing amount of Patreon support. We can't thank people enough.
We're blessed.
It really helps us out during this time. We had Amy Owens.
Hey, Amy.
Glenn Gibson jumped out at our highest level.
What's going on, Glenn?
Probably a cousin of yours.
Absolutely.
Vivian Haynes jumped out at our highest level.
Well, hey, Vivian. Thank you.
Shannon Northrup.
What's going on, Shanna?
Bob Riedlinger.
The old Riedlinger in the house.
Yep. Sade Pimentel.
Oh, Pimental.
Or Sadie. It could be Sadie.
We'll go with Sadie.
But I like Sade because it just sounds classy.
This is like the singer Sade.
Sade.
Yeah.
Lauren Bradford.
Hey, Lauren.
Faye Nieto.
Hey, Faye.
Christy.
What's going on, Christy?
Melissa jumped out at her highest level.
Thanks, Melissa.
Cat Doc.
What's going on, Doc?
Don Pylon.
Hey, Pylon.
Donna Bashline.
Hey, the bash line in the house.
Bonnie.
What's happening, Bonnie?
Alfredo Martinez.
Martinez.
TJ Minor.
What's going on, TJ?
Michael Bingham.
Hey, Michael.
N and E.
What's happening, ENN?
Laura Hay.
Hey, Laura.
Rachel Brown.
Hey, Rachel.
Dan May.
Hey, thanks, Dan.
Lauren Olson.
Hey, Lauren.
Jody Bastarash is what I'm going with.
Yeah, Bastarace.
Okay. It could be.
Could be.
Actually, could be.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Jody Knoll.
Well, thank you, Jody.
And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs.
Yeah.
This week we selected Paula Hammond.
Hey, appreciate that, Paula.
Just an unbelievable supporter throughout the years of the show. Can't thank her enough. We had some PayPal.
Yeah.
Kelly France.
Hey, Kelly.
Rhonda Allred.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Jacob Nozika.
Hey, Nozika.
And Kimberly Lacey.
Hey, appreciate that, Kimberly.
So we appreciate all the support, the new, the continued. It's all great. Gibbs, right now, we have an episode out on True Crime All the Time Unsolved. We're talking about the 1998 unsolved murder of Nicholas Travis and at the same time, the disappearance of his girlfriend, Tabitha Brewer.
Yeah. It's a good case for sure. It's one of those ones that, again, we'll chase a few rabbit holes. But at the end of the day, I think that if you typically are not into unsolved because you hate the mystery behind it, you probably like this one, because I think majority of the people know who has probably done this.
They think, yeah. I mean, I think this one caters to both types of people, right? It has enough of the unsolved mystery to let people kind of hear the facts and decide for themselves. But you also have, I don't want to call it finality because there is no finality.
Right.
But you have the thing where you can talk about this main suspect that most people believe had something to do with this case. And you can look at it that way as kind of having some of the elements of a solved case.
Exactly. So check it out.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It's a good episode. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I am.
We are headed out to Shasta County, California.
Shasta. Okay.
Isn't that what you used to drink?
Shasta. Yeah.
To talk about the life and crimes of one Darrell Keith Rich. He went on a rampage in the summer of 1978, committing crimes against 9 young women and girls, and the press dubbed him the Hilltop Rapist. He murdered at least 4, and his crimes were brutal, which we'll detail, but there are also some interesting legal wranglings involved here as well. So let's jump into some background. There's not a ton of details out there about his childhood in California, but Darrell was born on February 14th, 1955. Most of what is known, I found in some of his appeal docs. He was adopted.
Yeah.
By his own account, he had a difficult childhood growing up. He said his mother was very domineering and his parents were in a constant state of battle. I mean, they were always fighting. Man, Gibbs, how many times have we said that about killers?
Too many.
Domineering mother.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? Because it's something I always question. What do people really mean when they say, okay, I had a domineering mother?
Because it can be subjective.
It can be very subjective. There are degrees, right? Some people might look at their mom who is on their case for not cleaning their room, not doing their chores, not getting their homework done, and say, oh, yeah, my mom was so domineering. Well, Not really. Your mom was trying to get you to do the stuff that you were supposed to do.
Right.
Now, if you've got a mom who beats you with a whip because you forgot to put your shoes in the closet, all right, now we might be getting into the area of that, or put you down at every turn. I guess it really just depends on to what degree you're thinking of the word domineering.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people might think that their mom is being domineering when the fact is they were just a bad kid and their mom was just trying to make them do things, right? They were just not going to listen to whatever their mom said. Like, I did that for a while, right? My mom had to get on me, and I probably could have said she was kind of rough on me for a little bit, but no, she just wanted what she expected to get done. But some of us can't be, good boys like you growing up.
Hey, not everybody can. I think you're right. I mean, to me, it really goes back to, okay, what does somebody really mean when they say domineering, and to what degree are we talking about? And also, I think you have to look at, all right, these guys are killers.
Yeah.
They are saying this later on after they've been caught. Are they trying to explain maybe why they think they are the way they are, and they're exaggerating it? But a lot of times there's just really no way to know. One of the big things pointed out in some of these appeal docs was that his mother made money by watching other people's children. This is something with which Darrell really struggled. So you had his birth mother who gave him up. Then you had his adoptive mother who was giving most of her attention to these other children day in and day out, it was something that he really struggled to deal with. He didn't do very well in school. He was held back in the first grade, had very few friends. He did see a psychologist as a youngster who said Darrell had the ability to become explosive and possibly violent. But here's the big thing, and we see this all too often. No one ever got Darrell the help that he really needed.
Yeah.
No counseling, no therapy. It was pretty much like, hey, figure this out on your own. And guess what? He didn't.
This whole hold him back in school thing has me a little bit worried now. Because, I was held back.
I know you were. And you have not been shy about, you've been pretty open about it.
Yeah. So it lingers out there.
It has you worried from what standpoint? That you might do what he did or something like that? Because there have been a lot of people held back.
Yeah.
In one grade or another. They didn't go on to become brutal killers.
That's true.
It just took them longer to finish school than their peers.
Now I feel better.
You should. His adoptive parents divorced when Darrell was 15 years old. And he initially moved to Southern California with his mom, but that didn't last long. He moved back up to Northern California to live with his father and new stepmother.
That's really two different places,
Oh, within California?
Yeah, Southern Cal,
Big
Northern
difference.
Cal. Huge difference, yeah.
Is it like SoCal and NoCal? If you want to abbreviate it.
Yeah.
As he got into high school, there were definitely some warning signs. He skipped school, continued to get poor grades. He was suspended a number of times, often for fighting. So there, again, I think that's where the psychologist was saying he has the propensity to, really be explosive and possibly violent. But Darrell Rich didn't find himself in any real trouble until after the divorce of his parents. He was 17 when he was involved in two different shooting incidents. The first one occurred after a fight with his girlfriend. It was reported that Rich shot himself in the chest in what most people believed was an attempt to take his own life. So he had a fight with his girlfriend. Maybe he was despondent and he did something, but he lived. But not long after, he started taking shots at police officers in what, again, many people believe was an attempt to do the same thing, but this time by having the cops fire back at him, thereby killing him. They call that death by cop or suicide by cop.
Right.
They didn't fire back at him. So he was sent for psychiatric evaluation where it was noted that, hey, this is a guy that needs treatment. The problem is Rich wouldn't go. At the age of 18, while drunk, he rammed another car with his mom's car. Moms don't normally like that.
No, it's not a good thing.
When you're driving the minivan and you just go all GTA on somebody, they don't like that.
Mm-hmm. That's when they get domineering.
They will. They will. He was sent to county jail where he did receive some counseling. But when they let him out, he had to go check in with the probation officer. The probation officer was very upfront with him. He said, hey, you need to go to treatment. But Rich wouldn't go. I think he had it in his mind, Gibbs, that, hey, I went through some counseling.
Right.
And I got this under control. I don't need to keep doing it.
A lot of people feel that way.
And they do.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened to him. So if you look at it as a kid, it was recognized that he needed some type of therapy. He didn't get it. Now he's an adult. And again, he's being told he needs therapy. But now he's choosing not to get it. He was arrested again at 19 after drunkenly attacking someone with a tire iron. And for that, he was sentenced to the California Youth Authority. And mental health professionals there who evaluated him said he exhibited bizarre behavior, but they didn't classify him as having psychological problem. And I think all of this is big as we go, along in this case, because the mental health status of Darrell Keith Rich, it comes into play a lot, especially as we get into the trial and all of that. While he was incarcerated, Rich discovered that his girlfriend was pregnant. So eventually he got out. They got married and they lived together, raising their child. He got a job at a lumber mill. But this was not a marriage that was going to last very long. I think it lasted 2 or 3 years. Darrell Rich began to drink heavily, and he was physically abusive to his wife.
Many times.
And at a certain point, they parted ways. Now, you would think normally Gibbs in that situation, she would have left him. But in some of the things I read, that wasn't the case. He told her to get out. Now, he maybe has said he knew something was going to happen.
Right.
And so he was telling her to get out before it escalated. Before
it got worse than it already was.
But who knows? Again, you know me, I don't trust half of what these guys say. But it's possible.
Sure. And it's tough to leave, It's tough. Emotionally, you're tied in. And these victims just have a hard time leaving.
Well, you have a child.
You got to figure out how you're going to make it out there when you're not together. And I think that plays on them.
Yeah. But he did pay child support to help take care of his child. But all of this brings us up to the summer of 1978. And Darrell Rich makes the decision that he's going to start hunting. And when I say hunting, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He's stalking his prey, and his prey are going to be females, women and girls. But the thing about Rich was that, all of this happened very quickly. His crimes occurred in quick succession over a period of about 3 months. This is not a long, drawn-out case. He's also still very young. He's 22 years old, I think, when he starts committing his crimes. He committed 3 assaults in June of 1978. He attacked a woman from behind who was walking from her Redding, California home to a nearby market. So he grabbed this woman, pulled her off the main road, and threw her down like a hill, like an embankment. He went down there. Now he's shielded, right, from the traffic and all that.
Right. No one can see what's going on.
Right. So he threatened to kill this woman, tried to force her to perform oral sex on him, but that didn't work. So he threw her on the ground, struck her in the head at least 10 times with some type of heavy object. Gibbs, this woman was hurt so severely that she was at the bottom of the hill for 12 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah, couldn't do anything.
Before someone saw her and called for help. And with all 3 of these attacks, I'm not saying the victims' names. I don't think there's any reason to. He next attacked a woman who was walking to a bus stop after visiting the fair. So what he did was he parked at the fair. And I think he was scoping for his next victim.
Right.
A lot of people at the fair.
Oh, plenty to choose from.
You can sit in your car. You can watch as people walk by. You can gauge, okay, what's their situation? Are they alone?
Right.
Are they with a guy? Is this woman with a guy that's 6'6", 290? Okay, let's let that pass.
Right.
I don't want to be cavalier about it, but I think that's what he was doing.
Well, I'm sure he was sizing them up for sure. Yeah.
He's looking for the best opportunity to do what he wants to do. Now, what would that normally entail? To me, I would think it would be whatever type of victim that he's looking for, but one that's alone, or let's say maybe intoxicated, or just walking off by themselves, not in a big group, not with a boyfriend or a husband or something like that. He grabbed this woman from behind, forced her into his car, and then he savagely raped her, forced her to perform oral sex on him. When he was done, he let her go, but he threatened to kill her by telling her that he knew her name, he knew where she lived, and he would get her.
Yeah.
If she told anyone what happened.
Scary.
It's scary. The whole event is scary, but I think that part is very scary because it would hang over your head.
Because you would never know. Is he out there today? Is he watching? Is he looking through the windows? Is he nearby?
And you have to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
As a victim, do I go to the police?
Mm-hmm.
Well, does it make that decision tougher if this person says, hey, I know everything about you.
Yeah.
I know where you live.
Sure.
And if I get even so much as a whiff that you've gone to police, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
Man, that's a
make it
scary
harder.
proposition. Toward the end of June, Rich drove up alongside a couple who were walking down the street. He stopped and he offered them a ride. They accepted. But as soon as the 14-year-old girl started to get into the car, he grabbed her, he yanked her inside, and then he sped off, basically leaving the boyfriend
Like,
standing
hey,
there on the street.
What happened, man? Yeah.
When he finally stopped the car, he sodomized this girl. He forced her to perform oral sex on him, but then he let her go. Darrell Rich committed 2 similar assaults in July as well that involved rape, sodomy, forced oral sex. All of these, Gibbs, they were brutal attacks.
Yeah, he didn't hold back.
No, because, most of them involved not only the sexual assaults, but pretty vicious beatings as well.
That's how he was able to control most of them.
Yeah, and we're going to see with his murders, which we're getting ready to talk about, he essentially carried over pretty much the same MO into the murders. The question is going to be, why did he decide to take the next step, right? What he was doing was bad enough.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But now he's not only going to do that, but he's going to graduate to murder. As folks adapt to this changing world, we're all buying more stuff online than ever before. If you're an e-commerce seller, are you ready to meet the demands of our new delivery culture? Well, be ready with ShipStation. When you're selling online, you're getting a lot of orders out fast. That can be very tough. How do you keep track of who gets what? What shipping carrier should you use? And are you getting the best rates? That's why you need ShipStation.com. It's the fastest, easiest, and most affordable way to manage and ship your orders. Just a few clicks and you'll be managing your orders, printing out labels, and getting your product to happy customers. No matter where you're selling, Amazon, Etsy, or from your own website, ShipStation brings all your orders into one simple interface. You can even manage your orders from your cell phone. ShipStation works with all the major carriers, USPS, FedEx, UPS, and even Amazon Fulfillment. It's no wonder ShipStation is the #1 choice of online sellers. You'll ship more in less time with the best rates available. And right now, True Crime All the Time listeners can try ShipStation free for 60 days when you use our offer code TCAT. Make sure your business is ready to meet the demands of delivery culture. Get started at ShipStation.com today. Click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in TCAT. That's ShipStation.com. Then enter offer code TCAT. ShipStation.com. Make ship happen. Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. It was on July 4th, 1978, that Darrell Rich committed his first murder when he raped and beat 19-year-old Annette Edwards to death. Annette's body was found on July 7th by a truck driver. 3 days after she disappeared, she was found down an embankment on a county road about 2 miles from her apartment. She was lying on her back. with her legs spread. Her underwear was pulled down below her knees, and her tank top was pulled up above her breasts. When the autopsy was performed, it listed Annette's cause of death as skull fractures inflicted by blunt force. She had multiple fractures of her face. Gibbs, one of them went from her upper jaw up through and into the eye socket.
Yeah, it was a very brutal attack.
It really was.
Yeah. Whew.
Rich next murdered in early August. 17-year-old Patricia Ann Moore was last seen hitchhiking in downtown Reading on August 3rd. Darrell Rich grabbed her, sexually assaulted her, and murdered her. Then he put her body in a local dump. When her body was later found and the autopsy was performed, it showed very severe injuries to her face and head. Some of her teeth had either been broken or just knocked out completely.
Beaten that bad.
Yeah, she had a wound that measured 5 inches in diameter that crushed the right front part of her skull. So obviously he took something heavy like a rock or some type of object, and he bashed her skull in. There was also evidence of strangulation. Rich next sexually assaulted and murdered 28-year-old Linda Slavic. This happened on August 8th. Linda was last seen at a bar by a friend around 1 a.m. And then at some point, she encountered Darrell Rich. But here's the thing about this encounter.
Yeah.
It comes out later that Rich actually took Linda to the same dump where he had left Patricia Moore's body and actually made her view it.
Oh, he made her look at that.
Oh, this was before he killed her.
Oh, okay.
Almost as a prelude to what was about to happen. Imagine the fear. Number one, you've been taken against your will.
Right.
Then you're led to a dump, probably, a scary place in its own right in the middle of the night.
Right.
But you're taken specifically to view a dead body. You already know you're in a bad situation. Yeah. Why would somebody be showing you a dead body if they weren't planning on doing something very, very bad, if not the same exact thing to you?
Yeah, I'm sure he's probably saying, look, you need to do what I'm asking you. You're going to be like her. And in her mind, she's probably like, I'm probably going to be like her anyway.
He ultimately shot Linda Slavic 2 times in the head and left her body at the dump. Darrell's last murder occurred on August 11th. So Gibbs, I really want everybody to look at the timeline here. You can see that all of these murders and sexual assaults happened in a very short period of time. The murders especially happened in very rapid succession. Now, all of these sexual assaults and murders are horrible, right? All the ones that we've talked about. But this last one is probably the most heinous of all. Rich targeted an 11-year-old girl named Annette Seelix, who had left her home in Cottonwood to go to the grocery store. Rich lived in Cottonwood, and he knew this girl. He had actually worked for her mom at one point in time. As she was walking back home from the grocery store, he grabbed her off the street, raped her in a secluded area. But Gibbs, then he took this little girl and threw her off a 105-foot high bridge.
Wow.
Just tossed her like a doll.
Right.
Off of a bridge. Her body was found the next day under this bridge. She was wearing only her underwear. The autopsy revealed that she had been raped and she had suffered a number of broken bones and internal bleeding from the high fall. They also found bite marks on her thigh. But the other thing that the autopsy revealed was that Annette had been alive when she was thrown from the bridge. And I don't believe that the coroner thought, Gibbs, that she died on impact.
I was thinking she probably didn't.
No.
And probably suffered and laid there for quite a while.
Yeah, I believe she suffered greatly. And I think she died all alone, probably wondering, how could anyone be so cruel? Why would anyone do this to me? It's been reported that she curled up in the fetal position before she died. Now, if that doesn't get to you, nothing will.
No.
You need to go get yourself checked out because you might be a psychopath.
Yeah, your heart should definitely feel that one.
Well, I think 99.99% of our listening audience will be heartbroken over that. Now, there's a, 0.01%.
Or prisoner listeners?
Yeah, I don't know who they are, but they're budding something. Or they just don't have that same type of empathy that the rest of us do. It doesn't mean that they're going to go on to be serial killers. It just means that maybe they have a greater propensity to do it. I don't know.
There's always that. And just remember, with greater propensity comes greater responsibility.
So you use my word in a Spider-Man quote.
I did.
I like it.
Yeah.
However you can figure out how to use a word that I use.
Yeah.
Always cracks me up.
It's good.
You have a propensity for it. I know that.
I do.
Police brought Darrell Rich in pretty quickly. But the way they did it, Gibbs, it was so strange. It's almost comical. So apparently he told a friend that he found a dead body at the dump, which is strange, right? You've killed 4 women.
Right.
2 of them, you left their body at the dump. Now, for whatever reason, you're inserting yourself into this case by leading your friend to the dump and saying, look what I found. So he took this friend out there and they ended up calling police. Police come out. Obviously they found the second body at the dump and they questioned Darrell about these bodies. But pretty much at the same time, they also discovered that he had this connection to 11-year-old Annette Seelix. So they asked him to take a polygraph and he did. Well, he failed it. But that's really all they had, right? You got a failed polygraph. You don't have anything else. They didn't have enough to hold him. But that's when Rich began acting very strangely. It was almost, Gibbs, as if he started to go to anyone and everyone he knew, and he started telling them, hey, I failed a polygraph test. The police are about to arrest me for these murders. They think I did it.
Right.
He started asking all these different people for alibis.
So he's trying to rally somebody behind him saying, hey, I don't know if you want to help me or not, but this is what's going on. I didn't do it. I just need somebody to be my alibi because, man, I'm telling you, I didn't do this. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't even know how well he knew some of these people. I mean, I'm sure some of these people were friends, but he may have been going to just acquaintances and saying, hey, this is what I need from you, brother. I need an alibi for the night of such and such because the police think I killed this woman.
Yeah.
And I also need an alibi for this night, and this night because they think I killed these other 3 women as well.
I guess it depends on depends on what type of person you are and how good you know that person if you're ever going to give an alibi like that, right? I mean, some people will give an alibi if they weren't even with the person. I know that happens.
Oh, I know it's happened in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, family, super, super close friends, maybe. But you're putting yourself at risk.
Well, sure you are.
Obviously, by lying to police. I get that. I get that it happens. But to just start kind of blitzkrieging all over the town, asking everyone that you can find to give you an alibi. Yeah. Not just, you didn't just go to your BFF and say, hey man, this is what's going on. Can you help me out?
Right.
It's almost like you're just throwing darts all over the place and hoping that something sticks.
And I'm the opposite, right? I probably was your alibi.
Mm-hmm.
But when they come to me, I'm like, no, he wasn't with me at all.
I know, because you're trying to take over TCAT all for yourself.
TCAT Nation.
You want to sit in this chair and do the whole thing. I know how you are.
Well, I want to sit on the higher chair. You're right.
The higher chair. It's actually the lower chair because I'm taller than you.
Oh, no. Boom.
And you, on purpose, pump up your chair because you want to appear to be taller than me in the video.
I have to. Like looks like when we go places, I have to wear those elevated shoes, man.
Hey, do what you got to do, man.
Those lifts. I have to wear lifts.
Do whatever you have to do to feel your very best.
I've
always said that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he started telling people that he had killed individuals. He even gave them details of the murders. But his stories were all over the place. He told some of his friends he killed for money. It was like a contract hitman. I think he had one story that had the Hells Angels paying him to murder one of these women.
Yeah.
Now, dissect that. If you're the Hells Angels, and the Hells Angels over time have been into some really bad stuff.
Sure.
You've got a lot of members. You probably have some members that have killed people.
Right.
Why in the world would you go hire a 22-year-old guy who works at a lumber mill to kill someone for you? I'm pretty sure you can find somebody in your rank and file that will do that for you.
Exactly. That's been vetted.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. They're not going to use somebody that hasn't been vetted through their process.
Well, it's all about the vetting.
You have to vet them out. You vetted me out. You're still vetting me out.
I've vetted you. I've ratted you. I've done all kinds of things.
Yeah. More than once.
Basically, what this resulted in was some of his friends and acquaintances going, what the hell is going on with this guy? And they started calling the police and saying, this is what this guy is telling us. He's telling us he's killed people. He's asking for alibis. We don't want any part of it. But that really put the police on to him.
Yeah. He was definitely on the radar then.
On August 23rd, Darrell Rich was arrested. So again, I think if you look at the timeline, right, committed his first murder on July 4th. Now he had committed some sexual assaults the month prior.
Yeah.
But from his first murder on July 4th to August 23rd, he's arrested. It all happened very quickly. And he did eventually crack and confess to the crimes to police. He gave a handwritten list of his crimes, including some of the assaults that police hadn't even connected to him yet. He also made a taped confession. He told police where they could find certain evidence, including a gun. And he also agreed to take another polygraph, which he also failed. So I didn't understand that, but he's all in at this point. He's basically given up. Darrell Rich was charged in Shasta County Superior Court with 4 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of kidnapping, 3 counts of rape by force, 3 counts of rape by threats, and a whole host of other charges, including assault with a deadly weapon, forced oral copulation, and forced sodomy.
That was like 22 counts total.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
You're facing a lot there. He pleaded innocent, and he also pleaded innocent by reason of insanity to all of the charges. Then on September 8th, police got a warrant to get a bite sample from Darrell Rich, and what do you know, Gibbs? It just happened to match the bite mark found on the body of Annette Seelix.
Not surprised.
I'm not surprised at all, but it's very important because if you look at this case as a whole, it's not like they had a mountain of evidence against this guy.
Right.
What they had was some very bizarre behavior. They had his confessions, which normally is huge.
Right.
Now we're going to find out here in a minute that some of his confessions get ruled inadmissible. So then, your case becomes tougher. But the bite mark is pretty big.
Yeah.
Because you have an 11-year-old girl found dead who was bitten.
It places you with her near or around the time that she died.
Yeah. I mean, who else logically would have bitten this girl but the person who sexually assaulted and murdered her? The trial of Darrell Rich began in 1980 and it lasted almost 4 months. It was moved from Shasta County to Yolo County due to pretrial publicity. I always get a chuckle out of that. Yolo County.
YOLO.
You only live once county.
That's how it goes, man.
My daughter's always walking around going, YOLO.
YOLO.
For a long time, I had no idea what that means.
What if they eat Rolos in YOLO?
They might.
You know?
We don't know.
And they're probably solo.
Eating them solo?
Yeah.
If you'd have put all 3 of those together, that would have been really good.
That would have been cool.
It is hard to argue that one, though, Gibbs. I mean, there couldn't have been too many people in Shasta County that didn't know the details of what Darrell Rich was accused of doing,
Sure.
there wouldn't have been many people, if any, in the Darrell Rich fan club. Now, the question is, were there that many people in Yolo County that hadn't been inundated with the details? This is the late 70s, 1980, not the same type of news circulation that we have today, but you have to imagine the papers are filled with information on this guy and what he's suspected of doing.
Right.
It is about 160 miles south of Shasta County. So I think at the very least, you're giving the defendant the benefit of a better chance at finding an untainted, impartial jury.
Sure. I mean, you're over 2 hours away. You're thinking, well,
how much farther can we go?
Yeah.
We can't go to a different state.
it's also the thing that you're going to do to try to eliminate any appeals that would come down the road.
Or something getting overturned. Yeah, I think it's absolutely correct. Would they have rather held it in Shasta? I'm sure.
Sure.
There was talk about holding it in another county. I think it was Lake County, if I'm remembering it correctly. But they finally settled on YOLO. And I think you're absolutely right. You want to do everything you can do to make it look like you're doing everything you can do to give this defendant a fair trial. You don't want the defense team to have any ammunition to bring up on appeal.
Right.
Now, there was one important ruling that happened prior to trial. I kind of mentioned it a minute ago. It was that the 45-minute tape-recorded confession given by Darrell Rich to police was not admissible in court. So there were some problems with it. The judge said that on the tape, it was very clear that Darrell had asked for an attorney 4 different times prior to giving his confession, but the sheriff's deputies, they just pressed on.
If the suspect asks for his attorney and the police ignore that request and keep going, whatever comes after that, they shouldn't be allowed to use.
Yeah, it's going to bite them in the rear end. And it did in this case. And it was a big blow because you had a guy on tape confessing to the murders, but also giving details that police felt, okay, only the murderer would have known some of this stuff. But it was just a tape confession that was thrown out. Rich had made a number of statements to police, and he had given them voluntarily. So all of those would be allowed at trial. The prosecution had 100 witnesses testify, give or take.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, they had a lot. 4 of the 5 assault victims testified and pointed out Darrell Rich as their attacker. Now, that's very crucial. Now, it doesn't prove that he killed anyone, but I think coupled with the fact, and I mentioned it earlier, that he used the same MO. He didn't deviate at all when he went from the sexual assaults where he let his victims go to the murders that also included sexual assaults. I think it was very easy for police and even a juror to see, wow, this happened exactly the same way. Most of the witnesses that the prosecution called were people who testified about incriminating statements that Rich had made to them about the sexual assaults, the murders. And I've talked about some of this. Some of the details he relayed to these people were details that fit exactly with how the crimes were carried out. Some of these were things that police thought, okay, nobody but the killer would have known this stuff.
Right.
Some friends testified that he just outright admitted that he killed his 4 victims. One witness testified that Rich told him, once you've killed, it's easy to kill again.
It's hard to come back from that one.
It is.
Yeah.
And again, I think that would stick in the mind of a juror. What I will say is there's a lot of hearsay evidence, right? It's a lot of people saying,
right,
I heard somebody say this, but when you take it in total, so many different witnesses saying that this guy said this or that to them, to me, you either have to have a conspiracy,
right,
where all these people got together and said, we're going to lie on Darrell Rich, or Darrell Rich went around to all these people and just for whatever reason told them a bunch of stuff that incriminated himself.
Sometimes these guys are stupid.
Yeah, and it's hard to understand, right? Why would you take somebody to the dump site when you were the one that dumped the 2 bodies there? Why even act like you found it? Why involve the police?
Why open yourself up to that?
Somebody's going to find the bodies eventually, but why would you want to be in the middle of it when it happens?
Yeah, because now you're on the radar.
Yeah. Like I said, you inserted yourself into this investigation when you didn't need to. It's kind of like those killers that are way too eager to help the police, right? They're asking questions, they're offering their services. Well, it turns out that they're the killer and they just want to know what the police know. They want to revel in the fact that they're this close to the police. They're talking to them and the police are so dumb in their mind. This is what they're thinking.
Right.
They don't know that I'm the killer. Well, eventually they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And you've done yourself a major disservice. You know, once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like they're 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. You know, my wife and I do a lot of shopping online, and we always use Rakuten. Rakuten is the smartest way to save money when you shop because you earn cash back at over 3,500 stores. We're talking fashion, beauty, electronics, home essentials, travel, dining, concert tickets, and more. Your favorite stores like Macy's, Nike, Sephora, Dyson, and Lowe's. And that's just to name a few. Pay Rakuten to send them shoppers. And Rakuten then passes on a part of that payment to its members as cashback. Cashback is deposited directly into your PayPal account, or Rakuten can send you a check. You can even maximize your savings by stacking cash back on top of other deals, like store sales and coupons. You're already shopping at your favorite stores. Why not save while you're doing it? It really is a no-brainer. Membership is free, and it's easy to sign up. Get the Rakuten app now and join the 17 million members who are already saving. Cashback rates change daily. See Rakuten.com for details. That's RAKUTEN. Your cash back really adds up. Now, his defense attorneys said that all of these different statements were made by Rich because deep down he wanted to get caught. And here's the thing, Gibbs. They weren't trying to say that he didn't commit these murders. The defense team never said that. What they maintained was that he was insane at the time he committed the attacks and murders. They brought a number of relatives and friends to the stand to talk about Rich's character. They had 6 different expert witnesses who tried to paint a picture for the jury of a man who suffered from personality disorders that left him with a diminished mental capacity and an inability to control his violent actions. They also said Rich had a history of head trauma, which resulted in brain damage and extreme mental disturbance. I couldn't find what these accidents that would have resulted in this type of head trauma. He did have a car accident, I think, a few years earlier that required some stitches to his face or something like that. But there really was no talk about like big time head injury or anything like that.
But it is interesting because it ties into all that, the talk about how killers can have, the head injuries and,
Well, if you're an expert,
yeah.
or let me say this, if you're the defense team and you need to get a bunch of experts, you know what you're going after.
Right.
Again, you're not trying to get your client off per se. What you're trying to do is say he's not responsible.
Right.
He was not mentally capable of understanding his actions.
He wasn't himself, yeah.
That he either gets off
Yep.
based on the insanity, or they just get him out of the death penalty.
Yeah.
One or the other. But I think they realized very early on, there's no way we're going to be able to sit here and argue that this guy didn't commit all of these crimes.
Right.
We're going to have to take a different tack, which is what they did.
I think they were probably smart to do that because I don't know if they had any other good case to try to go the not guilty. He didn't do it. He already laid out so many times that he did this.
Well, so they were successful in excluding the taped confession.
Right.
But they had written confessions. They had, he had written names. We had the bite marks.
Sure.
The gun. Yeah, I think there was too much evidence against them. So I agree with you. They were smart to try to take, a different route.
Yeah. Instead of playing against it, they decided to play into it.
And steer it in the best possible direction.
Right.
They were not going to get this guy an acquittal. Let's say that. Maybe, innocent by reason of insanity, but more likely, let's try to save him from the death penalty.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned the 45-minute interview, the taped confession, not allowed in. What was allowed in that I haven't talked about was a series of videotapes where they essentially put Darrell Rich under, it was like hypnosis, but it said it was drug induced. So they put him in this state, and then he recounted on videotape pretty much everything he did. This was allowed in. He recounted his crimes. This was not good for the defense. All they could really do is try to undermine the videotape, saying, you can't trust them. This was drug induced. We don't know if it's real or not. He was in a trance, things like that. So getting back to his defense team, not really trying to get him off, getting him a lighter sentence or something else. They did argue that, okay, there was evidence that Darrell sexually assaulted his victims. So how could he be convicted of killing them to cover up the sexual assaults? And I didn't understand this at first, but apparently this was a very important point because it was one of the components of the first degree murder distinction. Like I said, they were trying to get Darrell out of the death penalty, and they were laying the groundwork by stating that his mental illness led to the crimes he committed. The defense team told the jury that Darrell Rich suffered from intermittent explosive disorder, a mental illness that results in a person having sudden fits of rage. I have sudden fits of rage.
Yes, you do.
None that ever result in me hurting someone.
Maybe breaking a car window now and then. That's about it. Yeah.
Making someone cry.
Yeah.
I know you've left the studio in tears on more than one occasion. And I felt really bad about that.
Yeah. I just did it a few minutes ago. I'm okay now.
In closing arguments, the prosecutor called Darrell Rich a marauder, a predator, a hunter of young women. He said this man went out, hunted these girls down, and took them to remote places. Rich's only motive in this whole case has been rape for sexual satisfaction. The prosecution countered the defense's mental illness claims by telling the jury that Rich used the same exact methods in his murders as he did in his sexual assaults. So they argued that this established a pattern that couldn't be explained by a mental illness, right? They're essentially saying it wasn't like he just snapped and all of a sudden started killing people. More of he graduated to killing people. He was doing the exact same thing that he had done during his sexual assaults. He just went the extra step and now started murdering.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
So they were making that argument to try to combat the mental illness argument. The defense in their closing arguments called the crimes senseless, horrible tragedies. But they said they were a result of Rich's compulsion for love, for contact with women, for acceptance, which for him was all related to sex.
Yeah.
Again, his defense team told the jury, I'm not saying my client didn't do these things. I'm just saying he wasn't in his right mind, and you can't convict him of first-degree murder, which would result in the death penalty. Right? So this is the whole key to everything.
Yeah.
They're trying to get out of the first-degree murder and down to, let's say, second degree, which would be a much lesser sentence and certainly wouldn't result in the death penalty.
That's what they're there for. They have to analyze the whole thing, the whole case, and figure out what do we need to do.
What's the best course of action?
Yeah.
And I think in this case, it was not to try to get their client off, but to try to minimize the sentence and at the very least try to help him escape the death penalty.
Yeah.
The jury of 7 men and 5 women listened to more than 150 witnesses. Gibbs during this trial. That's a lot.
It's quite a bit.
It's a lot of information to soak in. They deliberated for 9 hours over 3 days before finding Rich guilty of 3 first-degree murders, a second-degree murder, and 15 other counts related to the sexual assaults. So the second-degree murder related to the murder of 17-year-old Patricia Moore. The jury came to the conclusion that Rich hadn't planned out this murder, and instead he acted impulsively and bashed Patricia in the head with a rock. So that's why they gave him second degree for that. It took them about 90 minutes to decide that Darrell Rich was indeed sane. And Rich showed no emotion during the 15 minutes that it took the judge to read out his guilty verdicts.
Well, it's because he did so many bad things, man.
Yeah. I mean, when you rack up that many charges and you're guilty of that many charges, it's going to take a while to read it all out. On December 19th, the jury deliberated for 7 hours on Rich's punishment before ultimately deciding that he should die in the gas chamber. And again, he didn't show any emotion.
No.
When the jury's decision was read, he didn't show any emotion the next month when the judge sentenced him to die in the gas chamber for the murders of Linda Slavic and Annette Selix. Rich got a life sentence without parole for the murder of Annette Edwards, and strangely, a 2-year sentence for the second-degree murder of Pamela Moore.
It is strange.
Strangely low, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I get it. Big difference between second degree and first degree. Often that's where you get into premeditated. The jury didn't see it that way. But you still murdered somebody. You would think that warrants more than 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, most people get more than 2 years for boosting a car, having a certain amount of weed on them.
Right.
It just seems very low.
Yeah,
now,
extremely low.
In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to matter, right? He's got a death sentence. He's got a life sentence with no parole. It's just, I mean, I think as the victim's family, you would look at that and say, oh, that's not right.
Right.
You're saying that this guy murdered our daughter.
Yeah.
And it was proven in a court of law, but yet he's only going to get 2 years?
Yeah, it just wouldn't sit. I don't think it would sit good. I know it wouldn't sit good with me.
No, me neither. The judge tacked on another 12 and a half years for all of the other charges. And the judge said, quote, the manner in which these victims were killed showed a complete lack of regard for human life and involved brutal and barbaric methods of killing. All of this against 3 innocent women who had the misfortune to encounter Darrell Rich and an 11-year-old female child on her way home from a grocery store. I read, Gibbs, that Darrell got married in his jail cell. I believe in between the time he was convicted and the time he was sentenced.
He got married.
Yeah. Or right before he was convicted. It was like either during the trial or in between the conviction and the sentencing. So apparently this woman had reached out to him sometime before. They began corresponding. They fell in love. I don't know if she was sitting in his trial and just saw him every day.
Right.
I don't know.
Scary.
But they allowed them to get married in his jail cell. And this woman was sitting in the courtroom crying as he was sentenced to die.
But she knew a different Darrell, didn't she? In her mind.
Maybe. I don't know how well could she have known this guy.
But how do you not sit there and listen to what he did to these victims and their families around you?
Yeah, why would you want to associate yourself with this person that is clearly guilty?
Right.
Was proven guilty in a court of law, and you're never going to see on the outside because he's going to die in prison.
Exactly. So why do that?
I don't get it. But you and I never understand it, really.
No, we don't. We don't get that whole drive towards somebody like that.
No, I get it if you believe that somebody is innocent, right? You look at the case of the West Memphis Three. There was the one lady that was crusading for them. She fell in love with one of the guys. They ended up getting married. Well, he later got out, and I'm assuming they'll live happily ever after. But these women that marry men that, have killed a number of women, and they're never getting out.
No.
What are you doing with your life?
What's the drive there? What are you trying to?
Don't know. Can't figure it out. So he went to San Quentin. And after a number of years on death row, Darrell Rich found out that he was 1/4 Native American, Cherokee to be exact, on his biological father's side. So he started going by the name Young Elk. And he's going through all the appeals that you go through when you get a death sentence the whole time, sitting on death row in San Quentin. But all of these were denied.
Right.
His last appeal for clemency centered around the claim that he was mentally incompetent to be executed. Now, his defense also said his original indictment was unfair because there were no Native Americans on the grand jury.
Oh, wow.
So this is kind of like a last ditch, effort. One of the original prosecutors, they interviewed him and he said, "How can this even be raised as an issue? We went through the whole trial and never once did it come up that Darrell Rich was Native American."
Right.
Well, hell, Rich didn't even know himself until he was on death row.
Yeah.
So how can you bring it up that, hey, there should have been some representation on the grand jury when nobody knew and he didn't tell anybody because he didn't know.
Well, he couldn't self-identify himself.
No. Now, as you can imagine, victims and victims' families, they were very outspoken against any clemency for Darrell Rich. Gibbs, they'd been living with all of this for over 20 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah, he was on death row for quite a while. I know at one point he was one of the longest standing death row inmates in California. The stepfather of Annette Felix told the parole board that girl was 11 years old. She didn't even know what sex was. I never thought I'd want to see a person die, but he put so much hate in me. Governor Gray Davis denied clemency for Rich, and his execution was slated for March 15th, 2000. And then about a week before his execution, Rich's defense team argued that because of his Native American heritage, he should be allowed to die in a sweat lodge.
Really?
Yeah. And I read a bunch of articles on this, of how important this is to many Native Americans.
Right.
And Darrell, before a judge, made the statement, "I will not be spiritually purified to enter the spirit world, and my spirit will not successfully pass over to the spirit world." Basically saying, if you don't let me do this,
right,
I can't pass over. Now, officials, they were viewing this as a big no-no, right?
Right.
They didn't want him to be allowed to do the sweat lodge. They cited security concerns. So eventually a judge did say, no, can't do that. But they did allow him a few concessions. They allowed him to have a peace pipe.
Oh, Smoke a peace pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was allowed to sit in a conference room with some of his spiritual advisors and pass around the peace pipe.
Okay.
They also said that he could have an eagle feather with him on the gurney during his lethal injection.
Okay.
Now, he was sentenced to the gas chamber, but California switched over
To the lethal.
lethal injection. Darrell Rich's last meal consisted of beef broth, papaya juice, and Gatorade.
Heck of a mix, man.
That's a strange last meal. Number one, it's all liquid.
Yeah.
And maybe he didn't want to mess himself.
Well, you're going to be dead, so you don't have to worry about cleaning it up.
No, but it does seem like a strange last meal request to be sure. But I don't even think someone should get that.
No.
You don't get to be like Mike when you've committed the crimes that Darrell Rich committed. I think what they should do is make you eat something like what they did on that Fear Factor show.
Yeah.
Remember that with Joe Rogan?
Yeah. Put all that nasty stuff and
Yeah.
blend it up and say,
Cockroaches or whatever it is. This is, if you're hungry,
here it is.
You eat this. Now, I know that would be struck down as cruel and unusual punishment, but in a case like this, and really, to be honest with you, in a lot of cases we do, it's hard for me to muster up even an ounce of sympathy for a person like this. I just can't do it. I keep thinking back to 11-year-old Annette.
Right.
That crime alone, there's no sympathy from me.
No, it's awful to do what he did.
So it was just after midnight on the 15th. Rich was strapped down on the gurney for his lethal injection. He had this foot-long eagle feather lying on his chest that they allowed him to have. They administered the drugs at 12:06 a.m. His breathing became labored, his face turned a little bit purple, and at 12:13 they pronounced him dead. The San Francisco Chronicle reported that some of his surviving victims and the relatives of his victims held hands as they witnessed the execution. Prison officials said his last word was peace. That was it. He just said peace.
Peace. Maybe he wanted to say peace out, but before he could, he went out.
That's why I wasn't sure if he was saying, I'm hoping for peace, or as in, I'm out of here, peace. Darrell Rich was the 8th person to be executed in the state of California after they resumed executions. Because, they didn't resume when everybody else did.
They were a little bit
they were way
behind
the
curve.
15 years later. Yeah. If I remember correctly, it was like 1977 when the death penalty was reinstated, right? It was struck down as being unconstitutional, and then that got reversed. I don't think California came back online until 1992. But even then, he was only the 8th person to be executed. So it was like, they were like one a year, maybe.
Yeah, not very many.
And now we know they haven't executed anybody in quite a while. It was reported by some outlets that there were 500 to 1,000 protesters.
Wow.
At the prison during his execution. Now, many of those were anti-death protesters. You're always going to have that.
Yeah.
But there was also a large number of Native Americans that came out to protest as well.
I'm surprised.
Well, I don't know that they were protesting based on what he did.
Yeah.
My assumption is, and I didn't actually read this, but my assumption is they were probably protesting the fact that he couldn't go out the way that
he wanted,
that that they thought he should have been able to.
Right.
In accordance with their customs, their traditions.
Yeah. But I also think they had to know he was using their customs and traditions to benefit him.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could make that argument.
Yeah.
That he was using that as a way to try to circumvent things or get things to happen his way. So as we wrap up this case, Gibbs, I mean, I think one of the things that really stands out to me is that Rich committed all of his attacks and murders within a pretty confined space. I mean, if you look at this geographically, we're not talking about a killer who was roaming the states. In many cases, he was choosing victims who lived very close to him.
Yes.
All of it happened within a very short amount of time. Yeah, so maybe the guy didn't have such a great childhood. We've talked about it. A lot of people don't. I think there were definitely some issues of mental health in play here. I just don't know to what degree. But what I can't figure out is what made this guy all of a sudden in the summer of 1978 decide to start sexually assaulting and murdering women.
Yeah. What was that thing that finally pushed his button to do that?
Yeah. What was the catalyst? That's what I am trying to figure out. Now, this is if you believe his statement that he confessed to everything he did, because he was very adamant about that. You know, when he wrote out his assaults and murders, he said, here's everything I've done. I'm not leaving anything out. Now, maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. But when you look at the trigger, what was it? Was it the divorce? Was it, I just couldn't figure it out. He was a young guy still,
right?
22 years old or so.
It had to be something. Just don't know what it was.
Or had he been having these fantasies for years and just finally made the decision that he was going to act on them?
I guess if we could ever figure out what these little triggers are, maybe we could figure out all the issues that these guys have. I mean, what's that thing that finally just sends them over the top?
Yeah, and obviously it's not going to be the same for every person.
No.
But I do think that's what a lot of people are fascinated by when it comes to true crime. I mean, I know it's part of my fascination. These people are doing things that I can never imagine doing. It's like I want to crawl inside their head and see how it works. Now, that might be a scary thing, but it's almost as if I want to know what they're thinking without having to think it. Does that make sense? Obviously, I don't want to have their thoughts. I just want to know why they have them.
Yeah, exactly. You want to get into their head just so you have that understanding, kind of like your mind hunter.
Yeah. And why they act on them, right? Because I think there are people that have the thoughts but never act on them. So why is it that, okay, they're having the thoughts and then also making the decision to act on it? Is it a compulsion?
Yeah.
Is it an urge so strong that they can't fight it back? Do they not give a shit? I mean, I just don't know. And again, you can't paint everybody with the same brush. A lot of people are going to be different.
But we know his wife leaves him. She's tired of him drinking, tired of the abuse. You know, maybe between that and how his mom treated him, how he thought his mom treated him growing up, he just said, you know what, I'm tired of women. This is it. So in 78, he says, you know what, I'm going to go hunt and I'm going to start doing these really bad things to women.
Okay. If that, then why the summer of 78?
Yeah.
Right?
Why he waited so long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His wife left him, I don't know, a couple years before that, I think, if I remember correctly. Again, trying to make sense of what these people do. It's very difficult. I mean, this is a guy, from what I could tell, Gibbs, never really left Shasta County, except for the brief time he lived with his adoptive mother in SoCal.
Yeah.
You just want to know exactly what the thought process was and how he came to the decision to start committing his crimes. I think that's what we all want to know. And again, I think in most of these cases, unless these people tell us, there's no way to ever know.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But that's it. That's it for the case of Darrell Keith Rich. Kind of a strange study. You know, this wasn't a guy that, at least from my point of view, had a lot of the things growing up that would point to him being this really mean, sadistic rapist and killer.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, your mom was domineering. All right. Well,
welcome to probably what a good chunk of the population would
yeah,
say.
I was getting ready to say, so were a lot of other people's moms, I'm sure. Some moms are like that. Their kids don't all grow up to be killers.
No.
Okay. Did he have head trauma? I don't know.
Yeah.
Did he have mental illness? I don't know. Because like in a lot of cases, you had one side saying this, you had another side saying this. Now, you did have over the years a number of psychologists say, hey, there's something here. Right. This guy's got a bad temper. He's explosive. Yeah. He could be violent. There's something to that. Now, is it anger management issues, or is it a quote unquote diagnosable mental illness? I don't know that part. What I do know is he was a bad guy that committed some very, very bad crimes. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Let's hear 'em.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. This is Kaylee from Grants Pass, Oregon. I've been a TCAT listener for a little over a year, and I gotta say, you guys blow every other true crime podcast completely out of the water. You've also really helped to reinforce my efforts to educate my children on safety and awareness, so thank you so much for that. Anyway, I finished the Ward Weaver episode a couple days ago, and Mike, I chuckled a bit when you mentioned how cold it probably is in Oregon in the winter, because honestly, most of Oregon doesn't drop below the low 30s during the winter, so it's really not too cold. Could be worse. Thanks for all you do, and thank you for reminding me every week to stay safe and keep my own time ticking. Bye.
So that shows you how much I know about the climates in our own states here. I just assumed Oregon got pretty darn cold. Now, low 30s is cold, but it's not Ohio cold.
No, gets much colder here.
Yeah. I just I made an assumption, but I just assumed that Oregon got
Looks like it'd be cold.
Colder than that.
Just looking at it, I get the chills.
The way it's shaped?
Yeah.
It seems like it should be much colder.
Yeah, it should be much colder up there.
But thank you so much for the voicemail.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Valerie here, Val in Ireland, in the south of Ireland. So I've been meaning to ring you for years, literally, and finally during lockdown, I guess I have some spare time in my hands and finally getting to do it. Your podcast is just brilliant. You're absolutely the best. I'm a dog groomer and listen through my headphones all day long as my customers don't need a whole heap of chat. And I get through like 8-10 hours a day of podcasts, so you can imagine how many I get through. But it's always T-Cash, first off, always, and criminology after that. But I just think you're doing a great job, and I really appreciate all you do. I know you work for a long time for probably hardly any income at all from it, and I know how much commitment it takes. So just say how much I appreciate you. I'm a long-time listener since the very beginning. I think you were about 10 episodes in when I first found you, so stuck with you all the time. Just absolutely love the show. So keep your own time ticking, boys. Many thanks again. Bye.
Aye, that's all right. I like that.
You know what's funny to me is sometimes you struggle to find the right word in your normal accent.
Right.
But when you do the accents and you struggle to find the next word, it cracks me up.
Yeah.
For some reason.
I don't know. It does.
You're concentrating so hard on trying to do the accent that you can't figure out what it is you want to say.
There we go. But no, that's great. We appreciate what she said.
No, we do. I will say this, she said, okay, we did the show for a long time for very little. Yeah. We actually paid. We went negative.
We did.
For a long time. We paid to put out the podcast.
Yeah.
But it all worked out.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Gabe. I'm calling from Norway. I'm a real big fan of your podcast, and I wanted to tell you about the only serial killer we have in Norway. And his name is Arnfinn Nesbø, and he actually is out of prison because we only have 21 years maximum sentence in Norway. So I think it's a case that might be cool for your podcast. He actually confessed to 27 murders, and he was a nurse at the retirement home, and he injected his patients with I guess poison, and actually killed at least 27 people. So if you want to talk about some Scandinavian true crime, that's my tips to you. Thank you for your podcast. I really enjoy it.
Are you telling me that Norway's only had one serial killer in the history of the country?
Seems very low.
Wow. Those people over in Norway are super nice.
Yeah. That, or they just haven't caught any yet, There's somebody out there like, this is so easy over here.
Nobody's looking. No.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not. I'm assuming it is because Gabe said it, but I do think it kind of shows you the differences in culture.
Yeah.
The differences in crime rates, and I don't know. People over there just seem super nice.
Right now, some serial killers going, you know what? I'm moving. I think I can make a name for me.
Don't wish that on Norway. Don't you do it.
Don't do it.
Hey, Mike and Gibby, this is Robin from Pembroke Pines, Florida, and I just want to say that I love your show. I've been obsessed with true crime as long as I can remember. My friends used to think I was weird because all I ever wanted to read was true crime books growing up, not any of these other Twilight or any of that stuff, but just always had an obsession with true crime. I wanted to make a suggestion for a show. The murder of Bobby Kent. It actually occurred very close to where I live and grew up. He was murdered by a group of friends, and just all the things that went into it, and did he or didn't he deserve it? They actually made a movie about it early to mid 2000s called Bully. It's a pretty interesting story. If you guys get a chance to do that, I think it'd be really cool. All right, well, stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Bye, guys.
All right. Appreciate that. It's actually a story I'm not familiar with, and I don't think I've ever seen that movie.
I haven't either.
So we'll have to look it up and put it on the list for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Gibbs had no mailbag
What?
this week.
No mail.
Well, with everything that's going on, I understand that.
Yeah,
I know
true.
we do have some packages coming from overseas because a couple of people have emailed me.
It's on the boat.
I don't know. You know how long it takes to send a package from? I know when I mail out like Patreon stuff,
Right.
it says like 7 to 21 business days.
Well, I believe it. Yeah.
It takes a long time to get to some of these places.
Especially if I pay for it. I take the.
Well, if you paid for it, it'd never get there. First of all,
I use that one service that you're like, hey,
it's free. They just don't actually.
we can't
deliver
guarantee it. We just don't guarantee it. And they always want to know what's inside because maybe I think they kind of keep it for themselves.
Nothing ever gets to where it's going.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. That is it for our episode on Darrell Keith Rich. And that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
And Gibby.
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
At the turn of the 20th century, rapid industrialization, urbanization, and political corruption were ravaging America. But soon, President Theodore Roosevelt and a diverse group of reformers known as progressives would fight back. Hi, I'm Lindsey Graham, the host of Wondery's podcast, American History Tellers. We take you to the events, times, and people that shaped America and Americans, our values, our struggles, and our dreams. In our latest series, we explore the Progressive Era, which came to be defined by Teddy Roosevelt and others who believed in a strong, active government that worked on behalf of all Americans rather than the privileged few. As the United States entered the 20th century, these progressives hoped to steer the nation in a bold new direction, to launch an era of reform to restore power to the people. Follow American History Tellers on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Experience all episodes ad-free and be the first to binge the newest season only on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Start your free trial today.